Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to look at building the API behind the screens we were building last time. Last time we built we were working on a main detail screen for users, and we got the main screen built. It was a table, and we fired it up and hit the API, and it errored. So we're going to focus today on building out that API, getting the user CRUD details in place, and that'll be really fun because we'll get to experience some of the interesting parts of creating and modifying users inside MemSQL. So come join us. Okay, so we're in the API project here. Here's the user's controller, the user's router, and get users by page is the one that was erroring. Okay, we haven't test driven this at all. And so let's see if we can pop out some interesting details. Now, user roles from rows is kind of interesting. That's this service, user roles. And this does some really interesting things. Let's start out by test driving this. Well, it already exists, but we can make this a unit test. So new folder, services, new file, user roles.spec.ts. I keep forgetting the .spec, and then I'm like, oh, and it's not running at all. Describe services/user roles. Okay, let's make that an arrow function actually. There we go. TypeScript is awesome. Let's import from, let's go up to their source, services, and user roles. Cool. What are we importing there? User roles from rows. That's perfect. It should return false when no matching roles. Well, actually, let's wander through this a little bit. What does it do? Well, we pass in a username, and we pass in a bunch of rows that we got out of the user roles table. So user and host, and then we go loop through all the rows, all the role rows for this user, and assign those permissions onto the user. Then we'll return, or not assign the permissions onto the user, but collect those roles. And then once we've got those roles, we return that, and away we go. So if we don't pass any role rows, we should get a valid result here. And if we pass matching things, we should also get a valid result. So there's that. It should return false. It should return empty when no matching roles. It should return roles when passing other user roles. When passing matches and other user. Okay. Throw new error. I don't want to accidentally consider this a past test. Arrange, act, assert. Okay, so what are we going to do when we act? We're going to say const roles, or we could say actual, equals user roles from rows, and we need a username, and we need role rows. Okay, now we're going to expect actual to equal expected. Well, kind of. We don't care about the sequence of these, so let's say actual.sort to equal expected.sort. Okay, now we know what data we need to build, so we need a const username, and this can be test user, const role rows, and in this case we're passing in an empty array, when no matching roles. And const expected, we expect this to also be an empty array. This says that it's not the right type. You're right, it is a row data packet array, and this is a user role array. And so now they all have their types. Well, kind of. Let's go pull in their the content from the various places. Rather than just user, let's go to source, types, user. Okay, now we've got all of the things, and it looks like that one went green. That was cool. Well, one test suite failed. That's interesting. npm run test. This is cool. Go, 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 go. Determining test suites to run. Go kick up the hamsters. Okay. Now, in theory, we could comment out the other tests for now, just so that we wouldn't be running them too. But, it's all good. It's nice to know that we haven't broken other tests or other code at the same time. We remember that this console log shows when we try to log in with a user that doesn't have permissions, but we notice that that test still passes. Ooh, this is the test that errored. That makes sense. We haven't written that test. Okay, let's go write that test. So we have a similar thing where we have a user, we have row data packets, and we have user roles. But in this case, I expect this to be user role dot catalog editor and user role dot user editor, because I expect that those are the things that we will pass in. Okay, so now we need some user and role rows. I'm picking out here, this is a row data packet array. It's not a strongly typed object specific to what we're building. Bummer. So we need a user and we need a group. The user will be, let's go grab this mechanism because that is the correct user. There's that user, and group. In this case, we will be user role.catalog editor. Okay. So first one matched. That's cool. Next up, let's create another one. Here's another row that we had returned, and this will be user editor. Okay. And now we have some things for other user, so not this correct user. And so let's say that's user editor, and this one will be catalog read only. Okay. Ooh, it's saying that this isn't a row data packet, which makes sense. It's, just random things. So let's use this as row data packet array. And now it kind of says, yeah, I know that it isn't, but make it be. Okay. Now this test will kick off. Running tests. That is perfect. And as we get through these tests, let's see. Will this succeed? Go, 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 go. I think it will. I think it will. Yes. Nice. Okay, so now we know that this user roles works as expected. And so back in our users route, this is fine. So we don't need to specifically test this. Let's do an end-to-end test on this to get users by page and go see if we can do interesting things there. So routes, new file, users.spec.ts. Do we have a test for products? We do not. Okay. So describe. This will be routes users. And let's go build out the details of this test. It should get the list of users. Now this is an integration test. So arrange, act, assert. We are going to want to do something probably not that unlike this. Here where we say go get by ID. except for we're not going to get by ID, we're going to get by page. So this will be API users. Let's grab page 0. We need a token. This is no longer properties, but rather users, and it is of type user. And then we expect users dot length to be greater than 0. We expect that there will not be 0 users. Okay, so now let's say const admin equals users.find u.username equals, well, we have here in this auth token, we have this test admin username. Let's go grab that test admin username and set it there. So that's the user that we should get. Okay. Expect admin to be truthy. It should exist. Expect admin.username to be this username, and expect admin.secret to be undefined. Well, technically not exist, but okay. So now we need to go add some usings. Well, first off, let's go get some stuff here. We need this stuff before all. Let's try that paste again. Okay, we need this before all piece to be able to get at all of the auth token details, and in particular we also need to add, we don't need a product code, we don't need a product, so yep, we don't need that, we don't need those. Save fake product, yep, we definitely don't need that, but we do need, you're right, this is async. Async, and now that's fine. Let's import user, but it's not there. It is source types user. It is right there. Cool. We also need to go grab the configuration. We did this, where did we do it? Get auth token. Maybe we didn't do it. Here inside app, we do this process of loading the config. And we want to do that at the beginning of this test. So before all, let's load that configuration. And we do that so that then when we go get the environment variables, they're populated. So env config, let's go load up the env config loader. Where is env config? There it is. And we'll probably want to do this in all of our tests. We were a little lazy early on to not do that. And so it's possible if we commented out some of the tests that some of our integration tests would not have passed. Because not all of them loaded up the configuration that they needed. So let's get all of these tests to load this configuration. Before each, nope, we want a before all. So there's that before all. This one, does it have a before all? It does. So we probably only need that one piece. Here's product.spec before all. We definitely need that there. And auth.spec, that one only has a before each. Here's before all that will get us that detail. Now we have the configuration set in place. Do we need it for the service? Do test. Do test. It looks like, oh yes, this will use the, oh, and there it is. Let's put that inside of a before all just so that we understand how that works. And yep, we can't unload the environment variables between tests, so unfortunately this side effect will be kind of with us. App.spec, before each, create server. I don't know if this, oh, because the server will actually load the environment variables in the middle of the test, then that one will be fine. Okay, back here, create server. That is interesting that that's not part of this. Where did we get create server before each? Ah, yes, we do need this part in our test. That will get us the content that we need. Oh, and there's app init. Spoke too soon about pulling that one out. Now that we've got app init in place, then we should have all of the pieces of our test. Let's see. Users, oh, it's not a user, it is a user array. Admin is possibly undefined. Yes, I know we just validated in the previous test, but TypeScript doesn't know that, so there we go. And now I think we might have a unit test for this getAll method. npm run test, and let's take a look. The product one takes so long. But it's going. It's going. We're doing great. Okay, is it going to catch the error? Yes. Nice. So we got a 500 error. Now, as we go look at the code for this method here in the users, we could fire up Fiddler or Postman and go try to connect to it. But what I see here is we're selecting user from users. Users isn't in the Acme database. It is in the information schema database. So because we were pulling from the wrong database, of course it was gonna fail. So yeah, that's why that test failed. Let's run the tests again and see if we now have passing tests. That's working out well. Yes, go, 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 go. Yes, 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 yes. 18, 19, 20. 2 passed, 3 passed, 4 passed, 5 passed, 6 passed, 8, 9. Did we succeed? Let's see. Running coverage. And yes, we've got completely passing tests. That is perfect. Okay, so we've got passing tests on our users route. That's cool. Let's create a new route for user.ts. Now, similar to product, we're going to do a whole lot of CRUD against users. So let's just set that in place and get that started. We will want to dial out all the things to be product, not user. So let's say user and user role and user regex from user. I think this one isn't quite right. Username regex. There we go. Oh, we already grabbed that. That was cool. These will only be authenticated, so we won't need anonymous. So let's go grab the authenticated code there. Now the user role will be user editor that will validate. User editor, user editor, user editor. This will be get by username, post router.put by username, and router.delete. Okay, so this is get user by username. This is create user. This is update. Well, create and update, there is no user ID. So let's call this upsert user and just do the same thing in both cases. And this is delete user. Okay. Now this will definitely do all kinds of failing, but let's say delete user. We're going to grab the username as a string from request.params.username, and we don't need a force. But now if we don't have a username, or username regex.test, username fails, so let's go say fail. If we don't have a valid user, then let's just dump out. Otherwise, what do we do? Well, that's the magic sauce of what we do. Let's come back to that once we've got, actually, yeah, that's going to error. That's totally fine. Let's say upsert user. Similarly, we have a username that came in possibly in the query string, but we have a const user of type user that is request.body. So if username, let's say user.username equals username, that way if you pass it in the query string, we're going to set it back into the object. If you are doing a post to create a new one, then it will not overwrite it. That's perfect. Okay, so now we say if not valid user, and I know we haven't built that yet, then we want to dump out with 400. And that's all of that mayhem. Now we're going to go update it or create it. That will be kind of fun. Here we can say, oh, let's come back to that one actually. So there's upsert user, but we do want to do some 201 things here. So let's just copy that into place. We'll need that later. And let's come back here, create product. Upsert user, delete user. Okay, so this is create user, and create user will do actually exactly the same as the other one. Now get user. I'm just going to say get user rather than get user by username. Get user. Okay, similar to upsert user, it will it'll get a username. Actually, this is probably more like delete to start off. So we're getting a username, and if the username isn't valid, then let's dump out. Now we're going to go get that user, and that'll do interesting things. Okay, so we're nowhere near done here. Oh, validate user. This is a user that is a user. If not user, return false. Well, when would it be blank? At runtime, so technically this is user or undefined. Okay, so if not user.username or not username regex.test user.username, If we don't have a valid username, then let's dump out. Now, what else? We can validate other properties, but for the most part, it's an array of things, and it's an array of roles, rather, and it's an array, and it's a password, both of which are pretty okay. We might want to say validate all roles are real roles. I think that might be okay for now, though. Okay, so now we've got a whole lot of other errors, but let's test drive this because we've defined our interface correctly. So I think we're on the right track enough that we can do some cool test driving of our code. So end-to-end routes, new file, user.spec.ts. Now this is probably a lot like product again, so let's start there. And we can probably do something as bold as saying user that is match case, and then we can say user. Actually, this is product. Product to user and product to user. Now that isn't a perfect analog, but it gets us started. We'll want a fake user and say fake user. We'll probably want user role as well. And so I think we're definitely on our way. Routes user end to end. Before each, let's spin it up. Should get a user by username. Username. Okay. Const username equals test dash GUID. So yeah, that's pretty good. Let's save fake user. Well, save fake user probably wants to take in a username and a list of roles. In this case, we'll give it no roles. Okay, so go spin it up. User slash username. After we've saved it, then we'll go get the new thing. We expect it to be user. And so now username to equal username. And we want user.roles to equal, well, in this case, roles. And again, they may be in a different order. So let's say sort. And we'll probably need to do one of those things too. And we want secret to be undefined. We want it to be blank. Okay, so roles, const roles of type user role array equals this blank array. And now we've got that mechanism to go create the thing. So we could just say expect user to equal expected. Let's do that. Expect user to equal expected. And in this case, it'll work because there aren't any roles. But if we did have roles, they might be in a different order. And so that could do interesting things. Should create a user. Similar type of mechanism. In this case, this one actually goes and dumps out the expected to actual. So let's come back here and let's give it some roles. Should get user by username. User role dot catalog read only. And now it can go validate those roles. Okay, so we're going to do a similar thing of creating this test user. We will create this fake user. Now we're only going to go call fake user, username roles. We're not actually going to save it. And so let's pick a new role. Let's give it no roles. We're only going to create the fake user. We won't actually save it because here's the part where we are saving it. So in this case, we do need to give it a password. So expected.secret equals test pass. And we don't need to know that password. We just need to know that after it goes, then we're going to clear it out. So delete expected.secret. We want to make sure that what comes back from here, or what comes back from here rather, is blank. Expected ID, do we really need to return anything in this case? We haven't really passed anything. We just need to make sure it's a 201. So let's go get username, and let's expect those two to be the same. Perfect. Should modify a user. Let's go grab our mechanism up here for creating a fake user. Now, in this case, we'll give it user editor. And now, as we change things, expected. Okay, so that's going to save it. And there is no user ID. And so now when we change things, we can't change the username, but we can change roles to equal user role dot catalog editor. So actually, let's give it user role dot catalog editor here, and we'll say catalog read only. So that way the test user will be as neutered as it can be when we're done. So this is just modifying a user, but we won't change the password here. Username is that. Let's go grab it, and we expect it to match. Now it'll match because it only has one role, so that's okay. Should delete a user. Let's go fire up our save fake user thing. Here's save fake user. We don't need to grab the ID. And this one can be just a catalog editor. That's cool. Let's say catalog read only. Now let's delete by username. There is no force in this case because there's no soft delete of a user. And now let's get username and expect it to be blank. Perfect. Well, I guess in this case we're not using expected. That's fine. Now there's one more scenario that we haven't tested. Here we're modifying a user, but what if we change the password? So let's do that. Should modify a user password. Now we're going to do all of the normal things. Let's maybe change things up a smidge. It'll definitely have a unique username, so it's okay there. Let's not change the roles, but let's change the password. Expected.secret equals test pass plus GUID. Okay, so now we have a new password. Now that we've changed the password, we should expect that to succeed, and when we get this back, we should expect it to be okay, except for, well, there's not really a way to know by get by ID that it's okay. So let's instead do a login. Now we have a login right here where we go try to log in. So let's right here. We're logging in and we expect to get a 200 back. That's cool. Back over here in users, when we're getting the user, we expect this. We expect a username and a password to yield this result, this response, and we expect it to be truthy. Okay, so what's our password? Well, we can create a password. Const password equals, here's our test password. Password. Now we're specifically not setting it until after we save fake user, so it may even make sense to dump this under here. Does it make sense? I don't know. Okay, so if we're able to log in correctly, then we know that it works. npm run test, and we are going to get a whole lot of failing tests. That's totally fine. We haven't built the implementation, and to that end, we haven't even made it compile yet. So that'll be interesting. But while we were here inside auth.spec, we actually see a bunch of these tests to validate that we get 401s. Okay, let's do a similar thing, but for users. So we're going to build this mechanism right here. And now instead of products, it's users, product, user not found, GUID, that's fine. But usernames can't be that. So let's say GUID dot, fake username. Okay, so let's post to users, do that. Not found, fake username. Let's just say fake username. Let's add a fake username here and a fake username here. And we expect all of those to fail with a 401 because you're not authenticated. Actually, this one should also be a 401. We need to define fake username. That's totally fine. But let's also come down here, and here's where we expect with the read-only that we should also get a 401. So let's set all of those in place right there too. And we'll have to go back through this one in the other one as well to be able to execute that fake username. But we should still get a 401. We don't need status here. Of course, there are 401s. If we have a read-only username, we should not get through the door. And technically, I guess we should expand this test to say you need to have this specific role, but I think we're close-ish. So yeah, we'll get all of those failing tests in a moment, or all of those tests that will go green in a moment too. Okay, so fake username. Well, not only do we have, let's say, import fake username from fixtures user create. Okay. We'll probably need that in here as well, so we'll just set that up top, which, by the way, doesn't exist yet. Let's go build the user create. Product create is a good analog. Let's start there. Fixtures, new file, user create.ts. Okay, here we are in user create. Using our technique here, product to user and lowercase product to user. There's a mechanism inside VS Code that I want to figure out that will allow us to do matching, or make this bottom one be the case of the top one, and that could be really cool. So fake user. We're going to create a user, and we expect to take in a username that is a string and a list of roles that is a user role array. And now we're going to return a user that is a username and roles. We're going to specifically not set the, we're going to set the secret to test pass. I guess we could say test fixture pass plus GUID, and now that will be random. Ooh, we do need to pull in user role. That sounds perfect. So there's our user. We'll create a fake user that will also take in the user roles, and so we'll pass in the username. username, user roles. Now we have a fake user that we know has a password, so when we go create the user, all will be well. If we didn't get a 201, then let's fail. Username didn't get through the goal, and we can return the thing. We aren't grabbing a user ID, so I think we've got that. Nice. Now there is one more thing that we created and started importing. Export function. What did we call it? Fake username. Now why is fake username important? Well, we have here in the user types a username regex that says it's A to Z, 0 to 9. And so if we have dashes and things in our thing, then, so let's return test plus GUID, and we need to say replace all of the dashes, and we'll escape that dash because dash is a regex character, and I want to replace them with that. We can say G to replace all of them. Okay, so here's our fake username doohickey. Okay, back in user spec, we did a lot of creating our own username. Let's say fake username. Okay, grab fake username in all of the places, and now this should get us through the goal there. Now we could do some interesting things like modifying the length of it. Maybe we want to not have fixed length fake usernames, and that could be really cool too. Let's import this. Oh, did we already? We did. Okay, so we've got our tests, and the tests are all correctly failing because we haven't even made this compile yet. User.spec will be coming from oh yes, because this is an integration test, we're not directly referencing it. Okay, user here is not compiling, and it's not compiling because we haven't built the queries here. So we have a query over here that will get users. Okay, so let's go grab these two, and actually I bet we're going to need pretty much all of this. So let's grab that. We need to go grab the user from information schema where is deleted is 0, and username, well in this case user, let's put it in backticks so that it doesn't interpret it as a keyword, equals question mark. So what is that question mark? Well, that question mark is username. Now we have the same page size and page num. Did we pull that out? We did. Oops. Oh, because we don't have page size, page num, we're only grabbing a single one. So we don't need the limit offset. But we are very specifically going to say that it isn't deleted. Why would a user be deleted but still be present? And then here again we can say where user equals this. Now we're not pulling back all the roles everywhere. And what is this? This is user and host. And why is it user and host? Well, it is user and host. We've validated that in our test here. End to end, it's a unit test right here because we're very specifically building up this username at %. Okay, so we need that user at %. So there's that back here in our user route, user and host. Const user and host equals that. And now when we're saying user equals that, then we'll get the right answer. This gets a little hairy, and so we may need to do inline SQL to make that happen, or just pull back all the rows. Okay, let's go pull in this from where it needs to come from. And now we've got the get user. Okay, we don't need to shim stuff. we 404 if the, oh, we still need to do that 404 though. So let's say user rows.map. Okay, so if not results.length, then we get a 404. We could even say something like this, because null coalescing operator is awesome. Or we could just say, let's go grab the first one. There should only be one, and at that point it's not a user array, it's just a user. So if not user, then return, oh, results. If not results, then return 404. Otherwise, return results. Having this named user, this might be better named you. Well, that's you. Let's call this row. There we go. So row is row, row is row, this is you, and now this can be user. Now because this is user, now we get rid of that whole results thing. Okay, so that's get by ID. And different than just, selecting by ID, we can actually reach into the table and do some interesting things. That's cool. npm run test. And, oh, I bet we can't run test because I bet there's a bunch of stuff down here that doesn't compile. Yep. Okay, so unit test around validate user would be really interesting. Get user, delete user. Delete user is actually going to be pretty cool. Let's dig into delete user, stepping into my notes. Only because I forgot what the exact syntax was. There we go. Drop user if exists username. Now, at this point, we're going to drop the user, and we have this if exists. So now there's kind of a moral, ethical question here. If the user didn't exist before we were going to delete it, should we return a 404? Our goal was to delete it, and whether it didn't exist before or not, it doesn't exist now, so I say that's a success. Let's return 200 in either case. Either it was gone and we wanted it to be gone, or it is now gone because we told it to be gone. Okay, so this drop user if exists, we got that syntax as we were building up the SQL migrations. That was cool. Here, if it's not a valid user, validate user, that's why. Validate user. Oh, we definitely don't want to pull test code into our real code. Okay, so first stop, we validate the user. Now here we need to do some interesting logic, because we need to say if we don't have the user, so let's first get the user. Now if we don't have the user, create the user. Else, well, what? If we need to change password, do it. Okay, so we definitely don't need to change the password if we're creating the user, and we definitely don't need to create the user if the user already exists. That makes sense. So let's start out getting the user. Well, we've got this content right here to go get the user, so yeah, let's go get the user. Do we need the roles? Well, I think we will, but let's come back to that. So first off, get the user. Okay, so we've got the user. Not sure if we'll need that part yet, but now if we don't have a user, so if user rows.length, if not user rows.length, we need to create the user. So create user. Else, if user.secret change password. And then we need to do change roles. So, okay, create the user. Well, in the migrations project, we also took a look at creating the user. So let's go look at that SQL. Users, groups, first user. Okay, so here's that mechanism where we create a user identified by password. That's perfect. So let's do that. Now in this case, we'll probably await db.query OK result. OK packet, rather. And here's the query is create user identified by password. And we'll pass in the username and, well, in this case, user.username and user.secret. Why is it called secret instead of password? Well, when we're doing the login piece right here, and we wanted to embed it in a JWT, we actually had encrypted the password first, so it wasn't a password. And now in the JWT, it will say username and secret. So, well, actually, yeah, baked into the JWT will be the user with the username and secret. So I guess we could refactor the entire thing to say password, but we've kind of gotten this far with secret, so I think that's okay. So we'll create the user. Otherwise, let's change the password. How do we change the password? Well, to change the password, we actually do this. Right here, set password. Set password for Joe at host equals password secure pass. Okay, so let's do that. Set password for this password equals that. And set password for username, password is secret. Cool. Now we need to change the roles. So we do need to go grab the roles. That's good. And we do need to get the const roles equals user roles from user. And this is username. Well, user.username. So now we have the roles that are in the database. So let's call these DB roles. We also have const user roles or UX roles equals user.roles. So now which roles do we need to add? Which roles do we need to remove? That's our next step. So let's say const to add equals, well, everything that we need to add is everything that isn't in DB roles that is in UX roles. So UX roles dot filter urole DB roles dot find D role. Okay, let's walk through this again because that was a little weird. So let's filter out all the things where we find that role in the other thing. Well, actually, technically, where we don't find it. Now, these are all the roles that we need to add. To delete, this will be DB roles.filter UX roles. And we can flip these. Now we know which roles we need to add and which roles we need to delete. Okay, so to add dot, well, actually, let's do this. For const td of to delete, await db.execute, OK packet, revoke group from user, and we will say this is the TD, not DT, TD, and this is user.username. How did we know revoke? Well, here in the docs, similar to set password, here's revoke group, and so we're removing this group from this user. So first stop is revoke group from user. And we're going to do a loop rather than doing a map. We could do a map and then they would all run in parallel. I want to be able to see which one failed, so let's do it this way. To add, and instead of revoke, this is grant group to group, and now we'll add all those groups. So here we're going to say change roles or reconcile roles. Okay, so we have to go get the roles in the database. We go convert them into a list of roles. We convert we go grab the user roles, and then we filter them out to know what we add and what we delete. And that logic is complex enough that it's probably worth doing a unit test around it, or maybe extracting it out to another place. Since it's doing some other stuff, we'll probably want to do an integration test. Okay, so if we didn't change any row, well, that's not a thing. Whether we're adding or updating, the user's going to exist at the end. So here, if user rows dot length, if we had a user before, then let's return a 200. And if we didn't have a user, let's return a 201. That's cool. Now this can be username. We could do the full user, but I don't want to make a round trip with the JSON. So we could also just say, and let's not send you anything. You had all the data that you wanted when you began, so the only thing I can really tell you is how to go get it. Cool. So I think we've got the point where we can, where this will compile. So let's take it for a test drive. npm run test. Yes, 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 yes. Now this is really cool because it's not only a test drive of our code, it's also a test drive of our tests. So this is really, really cool. Now we do have some failing tests up there. Let's come back to that once we get our test results. Okay, so we have 2 failed test suites, 12 failed tests total. We expected to get a 401 and we got a 404, 404, 404. And all of these are in auth.spec.ts. Oh, yes, you're right. Because I bet we got a 404. Yep, 404 here too. There's one more piece to this. We didn't rig up our route into the app. So here in our app, we want to pull in the user router. And we want to rig it up to the user URL. Sometimes I get tired of missing that piece and I just get it to loop through all the files in the routes folder and rig them all up. And that is interesting, but it does make it more difficult to tree shake. And that means there's some reflection involved. And so spelling them out makes TypeScript happier as well. npm run test, npm run test. Okay, we've got this going. I love that we're test driving this API so that we can get a feel for how this works and really validate that it's going to be solid in the long term. That is cool. it didn't take us that much longer to build as well with the tests. We could have fired up the UI and gone nope, and fired up the UI again and gone nope. But in this case, once we get our test to pass, then everything is great. Okay, so we still have, when under authenticated, should get a 401 but got a 404. Did I rig that up incorrectly? Because we're still getting all of our 404s. I'm going to duck into the source code and see what I got wrong here. Refresh. That's okay. That's okay. We don't have the link to the database. That's why we're getting an error, because we go to reach into the database and it's not. Okay, so we've got our database connection string. We're going to go grab user. That looks like it might have been the magic sauce. Oh, yes, that's interesting. Here inside user, we only have when we're doing a get by ID, we only have a single user here. And so we can just do user equals if not user rows dot length, then we'll give you a 404 straight away. And otherwise, we can say here's this user, and we know that the username is user rows 0 dot user, and we know the roles is this, and so we don't need to loop through them and then just take the first one. But no password. Let's go grab that comment. That was helpful. No password returned. And then we can hand back that. So this is username. Do we want to just take the user's word for it? We did an exact match here. Const db username equals that, and that is a string. So db username, and this can be db username, and that will be a little bit simpler. User roles from rows. What are equals. Now you can light up. User. I did something wrong there. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. So that is a little bit simpler. Yep, I'm doing a little bit of validating and doing some weird stuff there. That's cool. Let's take a look at our tests and see how they did. Just test to test suite failed. Error cannot find name user. Oh, so you haven't run yet with the new compile. Let's run the test again. npm run test. And if this fails, then we'll fire up Postman and take Postman for a stroll to see what those errors are. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I feel like the count. 14, ha 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 ha. 17, ha 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 ha. We've almost got it. We've almost got it. Yes. Should get under authenticated and we're getting a 404 instead. So those authentication tests are interesting, but got failing status, status 500. That status 500 is actually really, really curious. So let's do that. Let's spin up Postman and take these for a spin. Postman. Postman is a really great tool for just firing GET requests and POST requests, web requests at an API. We do kind of need to do 2 hops. The first hop is into API auth, and we need to do this hop into API auth because we need to log in. So let's start with the username of admin, password is password, and we don't have any roles, and this will get us our token. Connection refused. Oh, helps to start it. Okay, so we're going to go into debug mode in VS Code, and that will be really great because it'll allow us to take a look at some of the things that we're doing. Let's put a breakpoint there and a breakpoint there, and then fire it up. I'll laugh if the answer is something like a typo in the route. API user. I don't think so, but that may be it. Username. Enroll user editor. Okay, so now that we're running, let's log in. Oh, it's still building. Now I'm racing the build. This is awesome. Okay, output. Oh, that is the, not the build output. Here is the build output. Go, 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 go. Is it ready? Is it ready? Is it ready? Now, the fact that it's building and running tests at the same time is kind of interesting. All else being equal, I wish I could pause the Jest test for a bit as I'm doing this side of it, but I get what they're trying to do, and so I'm totally fine. Building. Okay, now that we're running, debug console will tell us that we're started. Very, very nice. Listening on port 3000, and so now we can log in. Okay, here's us logging in, and the response that we get is this token, and that's what we're after. Now we are authenticated. Well, now we can switch to authenticated. So here's our authorization token, and we'll remove the one from the last login and paste in this one. Now when we run requests, we're running as the admin user. Perfect. So let's do a get to API users 0, and in this case we won't send a thing. And what do we get back? We get back the roles. Username root has no roles, website has these roles, so that works great. So let's ask for user admin, and now when we fire this one up, we land on our breakpoint. Perfect. So let's go through our thing. Are we getting the content that we expect? Here's our user, and we have the roles. That looks great. Now let's try something different. Here in our test, we were asking for this username. Oh, when creating it. Okay, so let's try creating a user. Let's post to here, post, and we'll say username is this username, and secret is some password, And roles, in this case, will be empty. Oh, quotes. Okay, so now let's fire up this post request that will create a user. Firing up the post request. Error is too long for username. Should be no longer than 32 characters. That's cool. So we know that our usernames can't be any longer than 32 characters. We do have this username regex. And so let's expand this username regex to, not there, types user, to validate its length as well. Right now we're just saying any number of characters. Let's say it must be 10 characters to 32 characters. Now why 10? I guess we could say 5 or 4. You know, we want something sufficiently complex that we can't accidentally hack it and pop open an account. Okay, so now that we have this username regex, now we can do interesting things. And let's fire up this test again and see if we'll now get our response. Now, what we yielded from this is this body that was actually really, really helpful. This is not a JSON body. This is an HTML body because we don't currently have any error handlers associated with our API. Now we could create a debug error handler, and let's actually do that so that we get a little bit more visibility. Here inside app, that's the test. Here inside app, a error handler actually takes in 4 parameters. So app.use, and we can give it a path, but in this case we won't. We'll just give it error request that is a request, response that is a response, and next that is a function. So here's our error handler middleware. This error is an error, by the way. And now if any errors happen in this thing, we'll get here. Now we probably want to do some interesting things like is it a not found? Is it a, whatever? But for now, let's just say res.status 500.json, and we'll give it the error. So now we're going to leak errors out of our application, but now our tests have a whole lot more detail about what's going on. Let's pull in request and response from Express. And now with those in place, this should light up. Now we're not using things, and ESLint is going to get really mad at that. But if we don't have 4 parameters, it's not an error handler. Let's also take the step of saying if process.env.node env not equals production. That might be helpful in saying don't do this while testing. Now I don't think we're doing anything with node env so far, so I think this will have to be a to-do because we really don't want this leaking into production. But right now it'll make our tests a whole lot more valuable. So here we had a blank body because it was actually an HTML body. npm run test. And now when we run our test, we'll see that same error message. This is perfect. This allows us to know that we've got a username that is too long. Firing up all the tests. This is perfect at being able to help us discover the things. Now we could take some additional routes of making our API more helpful to users. Like right now here in the user validate method, we just say, is it good or not? It might be helpful to instead say, here are the fields that are erroring. So we can say user, and here it is username, and here it is blank. So now we know which field is failing. Validate user. Now we will say this is errors.length, and this is const errors. If we have any errors, then let's return the list of errors to the user. Now you know what status it is. It's a 400, which means that it's a fail, and you know what you need to fix. That's pretty cool. I would love to go run around to all the other APIs and do that. Maybe I'll do that off camera. Okay, so we've got a 401. We're still getting a 401 when trying to authenticate. Oh, I bet I know why. Let's come in here to user create, fake user, save fake user. Nope, I thought we had a blank token. That isn't it. So why are we failing there? Let's status 401. This is a smidge dangerous, but let's do this. Got failing status, status, body. Let's also say user is user and token is token. Now that will give us the information that we need to put in Postman that will help us reproduce the problem. npm run test. I would like to get to the point where debugging super tests works as expected, but there's a thing between Jest and TypeScript that makes it so that in spite of the fact that I have a VS Code debug session set up, it's just not making the grade. So yeah, that kind of stinks. But this will help us grab all of the details. We can just copy and paste it into Postman, and we can debug it into place. I think we might have gotten one. User, object, token, token undefined. Okay, so if token is undefined, save fake user. Let's go find the spot where, knowing that we got the information we want, let's stop leaking details there. User. So this token is blank. That is unexpected. If token, if not token, throw new error blank token. Now at the very least we'll learn earlier. Get auth token. Get auth token grabs test admin username and password. Did we not set the details test admin username and password? Yep, those are there. So that isn't it. npm run test. And we're up against time, so this may need to wait until next time. I'll likely debug this off screen. But let's see if we can get this solved, because this would be a really, really cool problem, a cool nut to crack. Which probably speaks to why we have all of these 401 fails too. So up at the top of the errors, that might be last test run. Actually, I believe I cleared screen before that. Nope. Here we go. Failed to log in with username in test. Failed to log in with admin in test. Ooh. That is cool. Did our test change our route? So let's get admin. I wonder if we accidentally set admin in an unexpected way. Let's actually do it this way. memsql use information schema, select star from users groups. Okay. Admin should have user editor. Okay. Oh, did we accidentally change admin's password? That would be unexpected, but let's do that. Set password. Let's go grab the syntax here. We actually have a thing here that'll do that. Not that one. User password. Set password for blah. The password is blah. Set password for admin. The password is password.